Stop throwing away those fruit peels at night because what you eat in the final hour before sleep after the age of 60 could quietly be shaping something far more important than hunger or taste. It could be influencing whether your brain slowly loses clarity over time or whether it actively repairs itself while you rest. And according to a growing body of research in nutritional neuroscience and sleep biology, this is not just theory anymore. A landmark study from the University of Cincinnati suggests that certain plant based compounds, when consumed in the evening, are capable of crossing the blood brain barrier, the brain's tightly controlled protective filter, and triggering what scientists now describe as nocturnal neuroregeneration. In simpler terms, your brain doesn't just shut down at night, it enters its most powerful repair mode while you sleep. And the surprising part is that specific fruits eaten before bed may enhance that natural recovery process by as much as 40%. That number becomes even more meaningful when you connect it to memory, mental sharpness, and the everyday ability to recognize faces, recall names, and stay mentally present in your own life. And before we go further, I want to be transparent about something important. One of the foods we'll discuss later may challenge what many people over 60 have been told to avoid, and the science behind it completely reframes that advice in a way that could change how you think about your nightly routine. But first, I want to hear from you directly. Take a moment and tell me in the comments how old you are and whether you've noticed any changes in your memory or mental clarity over the past few years. Maybe it's walking into a room and forgetting why you went there, or struggling to recall names that once came easily. Your responses help shape these conversations and connect the science to real experiences. Now, let's begin with what the research is actually pointing toward. We're looking at three specific fruits ranked from powerful to most powerful that appear to support the brain's overnight repair systems when eaten before sleep. These are not miracle cures, but they are deeply interesting tools that align with how your brain naturally works at night. Starting at number three, we have tart cherries, a fruit that is often overlooked in conversations about cognitive health, yet carries some of the most compelling biological evidence in this space. What most people don't realize is that the decline in mental sharpness after 60 is not simply a direct result of aging itself, but is strongly influenced by low grade, persistent inflammation in the brain. Researchers associated with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine have described this ongoing inflammation as a silent process that gradually interferes with cognitive function long before any obvious symptoms appear. You don't feel it happening and you don't see it developing. But over time, it can affect everything from recall speed to word retrieval until one day a familiar name feels out of reach. This is where tart cherries, particularly Montmorency varieties, become scientifically interesting. They are exceptionally rich in anthocyanins, the natural pigments responsible for their deep red color, and these compounds are among the most potent plant based anti inflammatory agents studied in nutrition science. Research conducted at Louisiana State University observed adults between the ages of 65 and 80 who consumed tart cherry juice daily over a 1 2 week period, and the results were significant. Participants demonstrated measurable improvements in verbal memory performance, along with a noticeable reduction in inflammatory markers linked to cognitive decline. These changes were not minor fluctuations. They represented meaningful shifts in how well the brain could retrieve and process information. To understand why this matters so much with age, we need to look at a key system in the brain called the glymphatic system. This is essentially the brain's overnight maintenance and cleanup network. Its job is to clear out metabolic waste, including proteins like amyloid beta that have been associated with neurodegenerative conditions. In younger adults, this system operates efficiently, almost like a high speed cleaning crew that resets the brain each night. But after the age of 70, its efficiency can drop significantly, sometimes by nearly 40%. That means waste removal slows down precisely at the stage of life when the brain becomes more vulnerable to buildup and inflammation. Research from institutions such as the Salk Institute indicates that anthocyanins found in tart cherries may help activate supporting glial cells, which assist this cleanup process, effectively improving the brain's ability to clear waste during sleep. On top of this, tart cherries naturally contain melatonin, not the synthetic version found in supplements, but a plant based form that works in harmony with your body's own sleep cycle. This supports a deeper, more restorative sleep. which is not a separate benefit but a core requirement for brain repair itself. The brain cannot properly recover without quality sleep, especially in later years. Practically speaking, studies suggest that consuming about 8 ounces of pure tart cherry juice roughly 30 to 60 minutes before bed is enough to see benefits, though concentrated forms or even a small serving of the fruit can also be effective. And there is an additional detail that makes this even more interesting. When tart cherries are paired with a small amount of dietary fat, such as a few walnut halves or a bit of almond butter, the absorption of anthocyanins improves significantly. Research suggests this bioavailability can increase by up to 30%, meaning your body is able to use more of the beneficial compounds rather than passing them through unused. This combination turns a simple evening snack into something that aligns more effectively with how these plant compounds are processed in the body. And while tart cherries already show a strong connection to overnight brain support, they are only number 3 on this list. Because what comes next is something many people have consumed their entire lives, often without realizing how powerfully it connects to memory, sleep chemistry, and brain signaling during the night. Now, moving to number 2, and this is the part that genuinely challenges what many people over 60 have been told for years. It is something extremely common, inexpensive, and available in every grocery store, yet it has quietly been misunderstood in the context of aging and brain health. Number 2 is bananas. And yes, I mean fully ripe bananas, the kind with soft texture and small brown spots on the peel, the ones many people were told to avoid because of their sugar content or supposed high glycemic impact. That concern has been repeated so often that many older adults have completely removed bananas from their evening routine without ever being shown the full biological picture. But when you look at the research in nutrition science and neurochemistry, that advice starts to break down in important ways. To understand why bananas matter at night, we need to look beyond sugar and focus on what is actually happening at the level of brain chemistry. A ripe banana is not just a source of carbohydrates, it is a complex package of compounds that directly support neurotransmitter production, sleep regulation, and neural signaling. One of the most important of these is vitamin B6 in its naturally occurring form. This vitamin plays a central role in the synthesis of key neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, all of which are essential for calming brain activity and preparing the nervous system for deep sleep. After the age of 60, the body becomes less efficient at converting dietary vitamin B6 into its active form, which means the brain has to work harder to maintain the same level of neurotransmitter balance it once had with ease. When that balance begins to shift, sleep quality often declines, and with it, memory consolidation and mental clarity. A ripe banana helps address this in a very direct way because it provides both usable vitamin B6 and a supportive set of compounds that feed into the brain's nighttime chemistry cycle. One of those is tryptophan, an amino acid that the body uses as a raw material to produce serotonin, which is then converted into melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep. What makes this particularly interesting is that bananas provide not only the building blocks, but also the conditions needed for that conversion process to take place more efficiently. In other words, it supports both the input and the transformation steps of sleep related chemistry rather than relying on external supplementation that bypasses the body's own regulation systems. There is also the role of potassium, which is often discussed in terms of heart health, but is equally important for brain function. Neurons communicate through electrical impulses, and potassium is one of the key electrolytes that allows those signals to move efficiently across nerve cells. As we age, the systems that regulate this balance, particularly the sodium potassium pump, become less efficient, which can subtly affect how clearly signals are transmitted in the brain. A medium ripe banana contains a significant amount of potassium, and research in nutritional neuroscience suggests that maintaining adequate potassium levels supports more stable neuronal communication during sleep, which is when the brain organizes and consolidates the information gathered throughout the day. This is where memory comes into the picture in a very practical sense. Memory is not stored in a single location like files on a computer. Instead, it is processed, sorted, and reinforced during sleep, especially during deep, slow wave stages. If the brain's signaling systems are not functioning optimally during that time, the process of organizing memories becomes less efficient. This can show up in everyday life as forgetting recent conversations, losing track of appointments, or struggling to retrieve familiar information quickly. Bananas, through their combined effect on neurotransmitters and electrolytes, help support the conditions needed for that overnight processing to occur more smoothly. And now we begin to move into the next level of this discussion. Because while bananas help regulate and stabilize brain chemistry during sleep, the third fruit operates in a completely different way, targeting the brain at a structural and cellular level. We are talking about blueberries. And what happens when these compounds enter the brain during sleep is where things become especially interesting from a neuroscience perspective. Blueberries contain powerful compounds like anthocyanins and pterostilbene, which are small enough at a molecular level to cross the blood brain barrier, meaning they can directly interact with brain tissue itself rather than acting only through indirect metabolic pathways. Once inside the brain, these compounds are associated with reduced inflammation, improved neural signaling, and support for memory related brain regions, particularly the hippocampus, which plays a central role in forming and storing new memories. And as we move into number one, the focus shifts from supporting existing brain function to actively protecting and enhancing the systems responsible for learning, memory retention, and long term cognitive resilience during aging. Now we reach number one. And this is where everything we've discussed so far comes together in the most powerful way. If tart cherries help reduce inflammation, and bananas help stabilize brain chemistry and sleep related neurotransmitters, then blueberries operate on an entirely deeper level, directly influencing how brain cells function, communicate, and regenerate during sleep. And what researchers are now discovering about blueberries goes far beyond general antioxidant claims. It is about real, measurable changes in brain structure, signaling efficiency, and memory preservation over time. To understand why blueberries stand at the top of this list, we need to look at how they interact with the brain at a cellular level. The key compounds here are anthocyanins and pterostilbene, which are naturally occurring plant chemicals responsible for the deep blue and purple color of the fruit. Unlike many nutrients that are broken down during digestion and used elsewhere in the body, these compounds are small and stable enough to cross the blood brain barrier. That means they don't just influence overall health indirectly, they actually reach brain tissue itself, where they can interact with neurons and support cellular function during the most critical phase of recovery, sleep. One of the most important areas affected by this process is the hippocampus, the region of the brain responsible for forming and organizing new memories. As we age, especially after 60, the hippocampus naturally becomes more vulnerable to inflammation and oxidative stress, which can weaken memory formation and slow down recall speed. Research suggests that anthocyanins help reduce this inflammatory load while also supporting communication between neurons, allowing signals to move more efficiently through memory related pathways. This is not about instantly improving memory in a dramatic way, but about preserving the systems that allow memory to function properly over time. Long term studies provide some of the strongest evidence here. Large scale observational research tracking older adults over many years has found that those who regularly consume blueberries experience slower cognitive decline compared to those who rarely include them in their diet. In practical terms, this has been linked to better memory retention, improved attention span, and a delayed rate of age related cognitive changes. What makes this especially important is not just the improvement itself, but the slowing down of decline, which is often the more critical factor in maintaining independence and mental clarity in later life. There is also another mechanism at play that researchers find particularly compelling, and it involves a protein called brain derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. This protein is essential for brain plasticity, which is the brain's ability to adapt, reorganize, and form new neural connections. Think of it as the biological system that allows your brain to stay flexible instead of rigid. As we age, BDNF levels tend to decline, which can make learning new information harder and slow down recovery from cognitive stress. Studies have shown that compounds found in blueberries may help increase BDNF activity, supporting the brain's ability to maintain and even build new neural connections over time. At the same time, blueberries also influence the brain's internal defense systems against oxidative stress. One of the key pathways involved here is the NRF2 pathway, which functions like a built in protective switch inside cells. When activated, it helps the brain produce its own antioxidant enzymes, essentially strengthening its ability to defend itself from cellular damage. With aging, this system becomes less responsive, but compounds like pterostilbene appear to help reactivate it, improving the brain's resilience during periods of stress and repair. What makes this especially relevant in the context of nighttime nutrition is timing. When blueberries are consumed in the evening, their compounds reach peak activity in the bloodstream during the early hours of sleep, precisely when the brain is most active in its repair and memory consolidation processes. This aligns with the glymphatic system's peak function when the brain clears waste products and reorganizes neural connections. In simple terms, blueberries don't just support brain health in general, they align with the brain's natural nighttime maintenance cycle in a way that enhances how efficiently that system operates. And when you step back and look at all three fruits together, the pattern becomes very clear. Tart cherries reduce inflammation and support the brain's cleanup systems. Bananas stabilize neurotransmitters and support sleep chemistry. And blueberries directly influence brain cells, memory pathways, and long term cognitive resilience. Each one plays a different role, but all of them align with the same biological truth. Your brain does some of its most important work while you sleep, and what you consume before bed can meaningfully influence that process over time. Now, as we move into the final part, we bring everything together into a complete picture of what this means for aging, memory, and long term cognitive independence, and why small nightly habits like these may have a much larger impact than most people ever realize. Now that we've looked at all three fruits in detail, it's time to connect everything into one clear picture because the real message here is not about isolated foods or quick fixes. It is about how your brain is already designed to repair itself every single night and how small, consistent choices can influence how effectively that process actually works as you age. What the research is increasingly showing is that cognitive decline after 60 is not as fixed or unavoidable as it was once believed to be. For a long time, it was assumed that memory loss and reduced mental sharpness were simply natural consequences of aging that could not be meaningfully influenced. But newer findings in neuroscience and nutritional research are challenging that idea in a very serious way. The brain remains biologically capable of repair, adaptation, and even new neural growth well into the later decades of life. The real question is not whether the brain can change, but whether it is being given the right conditions to do so during the hours when it is most active in repair mode, which is during sleep. When you bring the three fruits together, you start to see how each one supports a different layer of that nighttime process. Tart cherries help calm inflammation and support the brain's natural cleanup system, which is responsible for removing waste products that accumulate throughout the day. This includes proteins that have been linked in research to age related cognitive decline. By reducing inflammatory stress and supporting more efficient nighttime clearance, tart cherries help create a cleaner internal environment for the brain to recover. Bananas, on the other hand, work more on the chemical and electrical side of brain function. They provide nutrients like vitamin B6, potassium, and tryptophan, all of which are directly involved in neurotransmitter production and neural signaling. This matters because sleep is not just a passive state, it is an active process that depends on precise chemical communication in the brain. Serotonin, melatonin, and GABA all play essential roles in transitioning the brain into deep, restorative sleep stages. When these systems are better supported, sleep quality improves, and with it, memory consolidation and mental clarity the next day. Blueberries operate at the most structural level of all. Their compounds reach the brain itself and interact with neural tissue, influencing inflammation, oxidative stress, and even the activity of proteins involved in brain plasticity. Through pathways linked to BDNF and NRF2, they help support the brain's ability to form new connections while also strengthening its internal defense systems. This is not just about preserving what already exists, but about maintaining the brain's ability to adapt and reorganize over time. When you combine these effects, what emerges is a simple but powerful idea. The brain's nighttime repair system is already active every night of your life. It does not need to be turned on. What it needs is support. The right nutrients, taken at the right time, can influence how efficiently that system runs. especially in later life when natural efficiency begins to decline. This does not mean these foods prevent aging or reverse disease. It means they can work with existing biology in ways that help maintain